Welcome to the Sleepy Underworld, a place where romance blooms, magic sparkles, and timeless fairy tales are reimagined for the dreamers of today. From heart-stirring romances to spellbinding adventures, every story is a soothing escape into a realm of love, wonder, and charm. So curl up, press play, and let us carry you away to the land of dreams. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. We'd love to know in what part of the world you are watching and what is your favorite tip for a good night's sleep. Thank you for watching and enjoy the video. The Crimson Path. The crimson cloak wrapped around my shoulders like a lover's embrace, its enchanted silk warming me against the perpetual autumn chill gripping the Moonwood since the curse fell. My grandmother's warning echoed, "Stay on the silver path, Ruby. The woods have changed, and my strongest magic cannot protect you if you stray." A basket of healing herbs swung gently from my arm as I picked my way between pools of moonlight that dotted the forest floor. Witch's nightshade, moon orchids, and starleaf bramble, rare ingredients that only bloomed in eternal moonlight, were crucial for my grandmother's most powerful remedies. As her apprentice and the only other healer with the gift in 3 generations, these midnight journeys had become my duty since her hands had grown too shaky to harvest the delicate blooms herself. I pulled my hood closer, the fabric shimmering with the protective enchantments my grandmother had woven into every stitch with strands of her silver hair. The cloak was her masterwork, created to shield me from the dark magic that had seeped into the woods during the eternal nightfall 3 years ago. Now the moon never set, and shadows held teeth. A wolf's howl pierced the silence, closer than any I'd heard before. I clutched my silver pendant, another of my grandmother's protective gifts, warm with centuries of ancestral magic, and quickened my pace. The path ahead sparkled with moonstone pebbles, marking the safe way through the haunted woods. My boots made no sound on the enchanted stones, another of my grandmother's precautions. "You shouldn't be out here alone, Little Red. The woods hunger for innocent blood." The voice rolled through the darkness like thunder, rich and deep, sending shivers down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. I spun around, my heart pounding against my ribs like a caged bird seeking freedom. A man emerged from the shadows, moving with a predatory grace that made my breath catch. His eyes gleamed gold in the moonlight, and dark hair fell in waves past his shoulders, adorned with small braids threaded with silver beads that chimed softly as he moved. He wore a black leather coat that seemed to absorb the darkness around him, and his smile held secrets that made my pulse race. "The path is protected," I said, touching my pendant again, drawing comfort from its familiar warmth. "And I'm hardly alone with my grandmother's magic guarding me." The pendant pulsed beneath my fingers, but it didn't warn of danger. Strange, given what my companion clearly was. His smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed just a bit too sharp. "Ah, you're the healer's granddaughter. I've heard whispers of you in the dark places. They say your potions can cure any ailment, except a cursed heart." He moved closer, and I caught his scent. Pine needles and winter wind, with an underlying warmth that made my blood sing. "And you are?" I asked, though something in me already knew. The stories whispered in the village came rushing back. Tales of the cursed prince who had vanished the night eternal darkness fell, transformed by dark magic into something neither man nor beast. Some said he'd been cursed by a jealous sorcerer, others that he'd delved too deep into forbidden magic himself. But all agreed that his disappearance had brought eternal night to the realm. "Alaric," he said, bowing with a fluid grace that belonged in a royal court rather than a haunted forest. "Once prince of this realm, now lord of shadows, and you are Ruby, the red-cloaked healer who dares to walk my woods at night." The way he said my name sounded like a caress. My breath caught. Every instinct told me to run. but something in his eyes held me in place. A loneliness that echoed my own. A pain that called to the healer in my soul. Even amid his curse, I could see traces of the prince he'd been, in the noble arch of his brow, the graceful way he held himself, the intelligence that burned behind his beast gold eyes. "If you know who I am, then you know my grandmother's magic protects me," I said, proud that my voice remained steady despite the way my heart raced. "These woods may be yours, but this path belongs to my bloodline." He stepped closer, close enough that I could see flecks of amber in his golden eyes. "Perhaps I don't want to harm you, Little Red. Perhaps I've watched you walk these paths night after night, tending to the sick, easing their pain. Perhaps I'm tired of shadows." His voice dropped lower, sending warmth pooling in my belly. "Perhaps I've waited centuries for someone who could see past the beast to the man beneath." His words stirred something in my blood, awakening possibilities I'd never dared dream of. I'd heard the old stories of the prince he'd been. Kind and just, beloved by his people until dark magic corrupted his kingdom. The histories in my grandmother's library spoke of his wisdom, of the prosperity he'd brought to the realm before the curse struck. "My grandmother tells me there's no curse that can't be broken," I said softly, daring to reach out and touch his hand. His skin burned hot against mine, and I felt him tremble at the contact. With the right magic and a willing heart. Alaric's eyes flashed with something like hope before shadows clouded them again. He turned his hand to capture mine, running his thumb across my knuckles in a way that sent sparks of electricity up my arm. "Your grandmother is powerful, but even she can't break this curse. The magic is bound to the moon itself. As long as it hangs frozen in the sky, I remain trapped between forms, neither fully man nor fully beast." "Then let me help you," I found myself saying, stepping closer until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I'm a healer too. My power may be different from my grandmother's, but it's no less real." He laughed, but the sound held more pain than mockery. His free hand rose to trace the embroidered protection symbols on my cloak, his fingertips trailing fire even through the fabric. "Sweet Ruby, you don't know what you're offering. The curse doesn't just affect my form, it hungers. Each night the beast in me grows stronger, craving innocent blood. Your grandmother's magic protects you now, but if you stray from the path..." "I'm not afraid of you," I said, though my racing heart suggested otherwise. But it wasn't fear that made it pound. It was the way he looked at me, the heat in his eyes, the careful way he touched me despite the barely leashed power I could sense beneath his skin. "You should be..." He moved closer still, backing me up against a moonlit tree. His hands settled on either side of my head, caging me in without touching. "I can hear your heart racing, smell your fear, and beneath it, something else." He leaned in, his nose skimming along my neck, and I shivered at the contact. Something sweeter than fear, more intoxicating than blood. I refused to look away from his intense gaze, even as his proximity made it hard to breathe. "Attraction isn't fear, my lord." His eyes darkened at my words, the pupils expanding until only a thin ring of gold remained. A growl rumbled through his chest, more felt than heard. "Dangerous words, Little Red. I'm not the man I once was." "No," I agreed, reaching up to trace the sharp line of his jaw, feeling the way he leaned into my touch like a starving man presented with a feast. "But you're not fully the beast either. And I see how you fight it. Why else would you warn me away instead of attacking? The stories say you've never harmed an innocent, even in your cursed form." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, hope, and hunger warring in his expression. His hands finally moved from the tree to my waist, pulling me closer with carefully controlled strength. "You've been asking about me." "Know thy enemy," I quoted with a small smile, even as I melted into his embrace. Or in this case, know the mysterious, cursed prince who haunts my woods. Your woods? His laugh this time held genuine amusement, and it transformed his face, showing me a glimpse of the man he must have been before the curse. Bold little healer. Well, I walk them more than you do these days. You just lurk in shadows. Perhaps I've been waiting. His voice dropped to a whisper, his lips brushing my ear. For what? Someone brave enough to see past the beast. Someone with magic in their blood and healing in their heart. One hand slid up to cup my cheek, and warmth bloomed beneath his touch. Someone in a crimson cloak who dares to walk in darkness. The moon seemed to pulse brighter, and suddenly I understood. All those nights I'd felt watched while gathering herbs. All the times I'd glimpsed golden eyes in the shadows. The curse. It can only be broken by someone who chooses to love both sides of you. That's why you've been watching me. Smart as well as brave, he murmured, his thumb tracing my bottom lip. But knowing the cure doesn't make it safe to attempt. The beast in me grows stronger each night. Soon I won't be able to control it at all. I covered his hand with mine, keeping it pressed to my cheek. Then we don't have much time to waste, do we? His other hand tangled in my hair, pulling me closer until our breath mingled. Last chance to run, little red. Once I claim you, the beast in me will never let you go. Instead of answering, I rose on my toes and pressed my lips to his. The kiss was fire and moonlight, danger and promise all at once. His arms wrapped around me, crushing me against his chest as the kiss deepened. I felt the moment his control slipped. Sharp teeth grazed my lip, and a growl rumbled through his chest that was pure predator. He jerked back, breathing hard. His eyes shifted fully to wolf gold, and his hands on my waist ended in sharp claws. "Ruby," he rasped. "Run." But I stood my ground, watching as he fought for control. My hands remained on his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath my palms. Slowly, his features shifted back to human, though his eyes remained wild. "You're either very brave or very foolish," he said when he could speak again. "I prefer optimistic," I replied, smoothing my hands over his chest. "And I meant what I said. I want to help you break this curse. Not just for you, but for our realm. The eternal night is killing the land slowly. We need the sun again." He studied me for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Come with me, then. There's something you need to see." Taking my hand, he led me off the moonstone path into the deeper woods. My grandmother's magic flared around me, but it didn't reject his touch. We walked in silence until we reached a clearing where a frozen fountain stood, its waters caught mid-spray in the eternal moonlight. "This is where it happened," Alaric said softly, pain evident in his voice. "Where the sorcerer cursed me and bound the moon in the sky. He said only true love's kiss could break the spell, but it had to be given freely, with full knowledge of the beast within." I touched the frozen water, feeling the magic pulse beneath my fingers. The curse's power still lingered here, dark and hungry. "A kiss given in love, not fear," I murmured. "From someone who chooses you, knowing everything. Someone who walks in darkness but carries their own light," he added, touching my crimson cloak. His fingers traced the embroidered protection symbols with reverence. "I've watched you heal the sick, comfort the dying, brave the cursed woods night after night to help others. You have a pure heart, Ruby, but not an innocent one. You understand the darkness." "And light," I said, turning to face him. The moonlight painted his features in silver, highlighting the remnants of his royal bearing. "I understand both, just as I see both in you. The prince and the beast, the man and the wolf. They're both part of who you are." He pulled me close again, one hand tangling in my hair, while the other pressed against my lower back. "Be sure, Little Red. There's no going back from this. Even if we break the curse, something of the beast will always remain in me." I wound my arms around his neck, pulling him down to me. Good thing I like a little danger with my happily ever after. This time when we kissed, I felt magic surge around us. My grandmother's protective spells woven into my cloak flared to life, not to push him away, but to contain the wild magic that exploded from him. I held on as power whirled around us like a storm, refusing to let go even when I felt his form shift and change beneath my hands. When the magic finally settled, I opened my eyes to find Alaric whole and human, his eyes their original deep brown instead of wolf gold. Above us, the moon began to move for the first time in 3 years, sliding across the sky toward dawn. "You did it," he breathed, touching my face with trembling hands. "You broke the curse." "We did it," I corrected, pulling him down for another kiss as the first rays of sunrise painted the sky in shades of rose and gold. Around us, the frozen fountain burst back to life, its waters catching the dawn light and transforming it into rainbows. The curse was broken, but something of the wolf remained in the way he moved, in the fierce possession of his kisses, in the growl that rumbled through his chest when he pulled me close. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. They say the woods are safer now, though still touched by magic. The moon rises and sets as it should, and shadows no longer hold teeth. But if you walk the moonstone path on certain nights, you might catch a glimpse of a crimson cloak and a dark figure moving through the trees. The healer and her cursed prince, forever walking between shadow and light, having found their own kind of magic in the space between fairy tales and truth. My grandmother wasn't surprised when I brought Alaric home. She took one look at us and smiled that knowing smile of hers, the one that said she'd seen this coming all along. I sometimes wonder if she'd known from the beginning, if she'd woven her protective spells into my cloak, not just to guard against his curse, but to give us both time to find our way to one another. These days, she teaches us both her healing craft, combining her ancient knowledge with Alaric's wild magic and my gift for potion making. Together, we've created cures that were thought impossible. The eternal night had left many in our realm sick or cursed themselves, but with the return of natural day and night, and our combined healing powers, the land is slowly returning to life. Every evening, as twilight paints the sky in shades of purple and gold, Alaric and I walk the woods together. Sometimes he shifts to his wolf form and runs beside me, our magics twining together as naturally as our hearts have. The crimson cloak still shimmers with protective spells, but now it guards us both as we tend to our realm and our people. And if sometimes, on moonlit nights, his kisses turn fierce and his eyes flash gold, well, that's just part of loving someone who walks the line between light and shadow. After all, the best love stories aren't about perfect princes or helpless maidens. They're about finding someone who sees all of you, shadow and light, beast and beauty, and chooses to stay. In the end, that's the greatest magic of all.